At the charity auction, my wife splurged on a vase and handed it to her childhood sweetheart. After they kissed, she glanced at me with blatant disdain. I immediately bid the highest price for the room's pink diamond necklace, saying it was for my beloved. Then I fastened it around my secretary's neck. Later, my wife claimed she truly loved me, but by then it was too late. At the auction, Jessica Miller made a show of buying a vase and turned to give it to her childhood friend Jason Smith. Reporters jumped in, asking if it was really worth the price she paid. Jessica looked at Jason with adoration and said, "If he likes it, whatever it costs is worth it." The crowd cheered, and Jason tipped Jessica's chin up and kissed her. When the kiss ended, Jessica looked utterly coquettish. Her eyes swept past me with contempt and then moved on. The presentation went on porcelain jewels until a pink diamond necklace appeared on the stand, and the room fell silent. The necklace had been certified by the European Gem Institute as an internally flawless pink diamond, rare as they come. Because the starting bid was high, few people even tried. In the end, I won it at the top price. When the reporters asked whom I intended to give it to, I said, "To my one true love." Our gazes met again briefly. She smiled as if she'd already planned this. Then I turned and slipped the necklace around Jennifer Delaney's neck. Her ears flushed, her eyes fogged with feeling like a startled little rabbit. Afterward, I looped my arm around her waist and we left. I felt someone staring at me from behind, but I didn't look back. That night, a friend opened a bar. I brought Jennifer to support the opening. Of course, we ran into Jessica and Jason's small world, same social circle, so we ended up in the same booth. Nobody knew Jessica and I were married. 3 years in, only our parents knew. A friend joked since Jessica and Jason always seemed glued together, maybe they'd secretly registered their marriage. Jessica glanced at me casually. Seeing I didn't react, she squeezed Jason's hand and insisted they were true love, so there was no secret marriage. Jason raised an eyebrow, stared at me, and the corner of his mouth curled into a sneer, as if he'd won. I'd seen that expression before, but it didn't faze me now. Time dulls everything. Those nights of bone-deep pain, the days I drowned my grief in drink, I was no longer that man. I snorted coldly and looked away. Whoever Jessica chose to be with now was none of my business. Friends suggested truth or dare. When it was Jennifer's turn, Jessica asked a mean, cutting question. I started to intervene, but Jennifer squeezed my hand to calm me. She didn't want the mood to die, so I stayed silent. Embarrassed, Jennifer accepted the dare and agreed to drink. Jessica wouldn't let it go, mocking Jennifer for not being able to play. I knew she was picking on her on purpose. But wasn't that exactly what Jessica wanted? I stood, drank Jennifer's penalty shot for her, waved goodbye to friends, and took Jennifer home. When we got home that night, I flipped on the lights and found Jessica sulking on the couch, a half-empty bottle of red on the coffee table. I tried to ignore her and went straight to the study, but she followed and stopped me like she was marching me to judgment. "Luke Dawson, have you forgotten you're married?" I laughed inwardly. What right did she have to lecture me? I turned, frowned, and said, "Jessica, you told me we'd do our own thing. Now you regret it?" "Regret?" Jessica shot back with a cold laugh. "Don't flatter yourself, Luke. I was only warning you don't get conned while you're busy counting someone else's money. Young women these days are clever. Don't be fooled by their age." I rolled my eyes and scoffed. "You're no spring chicken either. You're pretty good at deception yourself." I shut the study door. Then I heard glass shatter in the living room. It was the same pattern. When things didn't go her way, she made a scene. But I had honored our agreement, our separate lives, no interference, a marriage in name only. She'd sort her affairs, and then we'd divorce. 3 years ago, we married under our parents' pressure. Jessica insisted she wasn't ready for marriage and wanted it kept secret for a while. I took it at face value and treated her kindly. She clung to me after work, cooked soups like a pampered debutante who actually knew how to boil water, whispered sweet nothings, and was uninhibited in bed. I loved her genuinely. Then on our second anniversary, I prepared 999 red roses, bought the hillside villa she'd always wanted, and waited for the perfect moment. What I got instead was a video and some photos. In the clip, her eyes were glazed and her voice sultry. When the man above her asked who she loved most, she said, "Jason." The loop played over and over. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Jason had sent me the footage. I woke up to the signs I'd ignored. She never let me touch her phone. Her diary was locked away, and she flew to England every month. Jason was in England. I had known, and I chose to believe her. She'd been lying to me all along. By the time my bouquet had wilted and the petals fallen, Jessica came home. I confronted her with the video. Instead of guilt, she looked relieved. As if she'd been found out and freed. I lost control. I became someone else. I moved from accusation to pleading calm talks turned into hysterical shouting. I tried everything and exhausted myself. All I got in return was Jessica walking away without a backward glance and saying, "Let me handle my family matters. After that, we'll get a divorce." Her grandfather was sick and convalescing. The stern old man had stepped back from the company, and infighting had begun. Mr. Miller Sr. wasn't as capable as the grandfather, but our marriage bolstered Mr. Miller's standing among shareholders. Jessica couldn't divorce, not if she wanted to protect her family and preserve their leverage. Rage filled me. I wanted to announce to everyone we'd cut off the Dawsons' support for the Millers and make Jessica pay, but I couldn't. The old man's health couldn't take the shock. He and my grandfather had once been comrades in arms. My grandfather was injured, saving him and limped ever since, despite the best treatments money could buy. The elder had done our family a great favor. I wouldn't break his heart. I took a deep breath and pushed aside the troubles in my head. Lifting my gaze, I saw Jennifer's photo on my desk. The girl's bright smile alone lightened my mood. I'd first met her at a friend's wedding. I'd arrived a little late. Didn't want to interrupt the couple's speech, so I sat at an empty table near the door. Just as I sat down, a girl rushed over and dropped into the seat beside me. We locked eyes and she gave an embarrassed smile, saying the place was too confusing and she'd barely found it. With so many weddings going on at the venue that day, it wasn't easy to find the right one. By chance, we were the only two at that table. When the food arrived, I barely touched it, but she ate happily. Then, as the couple came over to toast, her face suddenly went pale. She blurted, "Isn't this Scott's wedding?" As the newlyweds and I stared in shock, she realized she'd walked into the wrong reception. Everyone laughed it off, but she trembled in embarrassment. She pulled $500 from her wallet and asked me to give it to the couple as her gift. I chuckled and told her it wasn't necessary, but she looked utterly defeated, muttering that she'd already eaten so much of their food. Finally, she found a red envelope and stuffed the cash inside. I reminded her to write her name on it. That's when I learned her name was Jennifer. At the time, I had no other thoughts, just that she was adorable. When I retold the story to the bride and groom, they couldn't stop laughing. A year later, I saw Jennifer again when she graduated and came to my company for an interview. She was applying to be the assistant to the president's secretary. In other words, my secretary's assistant. I happened to be passing by. Our eyes met, and we instantly recognized each other. She greeted me warmly, and I sat beside her. She thought I was there to interview too. I asked why she wanted this job. She said it was to realize her life's value. I teased her, to be honest. She grinned sheepishly and admitted it was because the pay and benefits were good. Then she asked why I was interviewing, but before I could answer, the interviewer called her name. At the final round, she walked in and saw me seated at the center of the panel, her face frozen in shock. HR asked why she wanted the job. She glanced nervously at me, then steadied herself and declared solemnly that it was to realize her life's value. Her face was as serious as if she were pledging into a party, but her flushed cheeks betrayed her nerves. I clenched my fist to keep from laughing. At that time, I had just confirmed Jessica's betrayal, and it had been a long while since I'd laughed from the heart. I did hate Jessica once, but now I felt nothing. Even before our marriage, I knew about her and Jason. The Millers and Smiths lived next door, but compared with Jessica, the Miller family's pampered daughter, Jason was nothing. He was only the Smith family's illegitimate son. It wasn't until middle school that his father brought him home. But Jason had 2 older brothers and a younger sister, all children of Smith's legal wife, so breaking through in that family wasn't easy. He was clever, though. He knew the Millers and Smiths were evenly matched. If he could secure Jessica, his place in the Smith family would be unshakable. From then on, he kept close to Jessica, sometimes too close, sometimes distant. In high school, he publicly turned away other girls, but behind Jessica's back, he flirted, leaving hints and possibilities. Girls chased after him nonstop. Jason never dated any of them, but he also never confessed to Jessica. That Jessica couldn't stand. She was used to being adored, never denied. Finally, in college, the two of them got together. Most of this I only heard from friends. They said Jason wasn't sincere, but Jessica was hopelessly love-struck. Word was they broke up because of clashing egos. Neither would bend, neither would bow first. Jason left heartbroken, going abroad. Later, they rekindled their affair, breaking and retying the bond again and again. People in our circle knew. If I'd wanted, I could have found out easily. But when we married, I trusted her. Or maybe I just didn't want to see her so low. After I got Jason and Jessica's video, I hired someone to investigate, and the truth came out. Jason had left the country because his mother introduced him to a socialite with far better prospects than Jessica. She wanted to go abroad with him, so he dumped Jessica. But he left himself a way back, acting as if his heart still belonged to her. Clearly, keeping contact with Jessica was nothing more than preparation for fighting over inheritance when he returned. I remember showing Jessica the evidence, hoping she'd see Jason's true colors. Her look shifted from indifferent to mocking. She said she couldn't believe I was so despicable as to slander Jason. That look, I'll never forget it. And it was that look that finally woke me completely. The next day, Jennifer saw the dark circles under my eyes and scolded me gently for not resting. She produced a thermos as if by magic, poured a bowl of chicken soup, and urged me to drink it. If Jessica was the cause of every wound, Jennifer was the cure. She filled the cracks in my soul, embraced my broken body. I still remember the day she confessed her eyes burned with honesty. I felt her pure love, but I couldn't accept it. I wasn't worthy. I told her everything, our secret marriage, Jessica's betrayal, my plan for divorce. After hearing me out, Jennifer thought seriously for a while. Then she frowned and asked if I really wasn't divorcing only because of Mr. Miller's health. I said firmly yes. She asked if I still loved Jessica. I said even more firmly, no. Truthfully, it wasn't love anymore. It was disgust. Since discovering Jessica's infidelity, I hadn't touched her again. I found her filthy. Jennifer sighed in relief, murmuring, "Good, that's good." Then she lifted her head, eyes full of sincerity. "Then I can wait for you." I'm still young. From then on, we often ate together, watched movies, went hiking. We stayed more than friends, not yet lovers. I wanted to be clean and wholehearted when I gave myself to her. I think she understood. That day at the auction was the first time I introduced Jennifer to the world as my beloved. Not because Jessica and Jason's kiss provoked me, but because I truly wanted to be with Jennifer. I wanted to give her the best of everything. Buying that pink diamond necklace wasn't a whim. I knew she loved pink diamonds. Jessica sneered, calling Jennifer a gold digger chasing my money. I didn't bother to argue. Jessica even pretended to warn me that a gold digger wasn't presentable, good only for play. What she never knew was that Jennifer's family was well off, just low-key. Her father was a renowned Chinese medicine doctor, her mother a university professor, and Jennifer herself exceptional. She was diligent and capable, one of the best in her field, pretty and sweet, with a kind heart, the kind of angel who grew up surrounded by love, filled with sunshine and eager to share it with others. Someone like me, reeking of money and compromise, could never be worthy of my little princess, Jennifer. On the weekend, I went to the old estate to visit Mr. Miller. He had always doted on me, and I made a point to see him whenever I could. Though age and a weak heart had worn him down, his eyes were still sharp, as if they could see straight through you. We played chess and talked about work. He even shared online jokes, bragging about being an internet surfer. At dinner, he was the same as ever, piling food into my bowl. He said a man needed a strong body to defeat all demons. I laughed and promised I would, then ate everything he gave me. When I was about to leave, he patted my shoulder and said kindly, "You brat, you finally have a smile on your face again." I froze, then understood what he meant. My nose stung, and my eyes grew red. Jessica and that useless Smith boy, what they did was her betrayal. You don't have to worry about me. These old bones are tougher than you think. Divorce her. Don't waste your life on them. Forget her parents, too. His words were a weight off my chest. When we first married, he had warned me her parents hadn't raised her well, that I should be cautious and not indulge her too much. For so long, I'd avoided a final confrontation with Jessica only because I didn't want him to worry. Since the fight at the bar that night, Jessica hadn't come home. I knew she was living with Jason. Honestly, from the day we came clean, she'd hardly spent a night here. That was also why I hadn't moved out. A month later came her father's birthday. Out of courtesy, I still brought a gift to their house. I handed it to Mr. Miller and sat chatting with him for a while. Even though Jessica and I had nothing to do with each other anymore, news of her and Jason kept hitting my ears like daily headlines. The two of them splashed across the papers, socialite Jessica and Smith Air kissing in the street. Jessica spending tens of millions on a mansion just to make Jason smile. Endless trending stories made her look like a joke. And then came the scandalous photos. Though blurred, everyone knew it was Jessica. Mr. and Mrs. Miller knew too. When they faced me, they were ashamed, apologizing that it was their fault for not raising her properly. Still, they asked me to forgive her. I said nothing, only steered the topic elsewhere. That's when Jessica walked in. The moment she saw me, she hurled her bag at me. Before I could speak, she exploded. Luke, I really underestimated you. How shameless can you be? Stabbing me in the back, are you even a man? She was convinced I had leaked all the negative press, including the explicit photos, as revenge. Mr. Miller roared at her to shut up, swearing I was an honorable man and would never stoop so low. Even Mrs. Miller tried to reason with her, saying someone else must be behind it. But Jessica was out of control, glaring at me with venom. Finally, Mr. Miller cursed her for being shameless. She shouted back that there was nothing wrong with pursuing love. Mr. Miller said Jason was no good and demanded she cut ties with him, or else he'd sever their father-daughter bond. But she was convinced I'd poison them against Jason. Pointing at me, she unleashed another tirade, calling me petty, cunning, a snake. God knows, I'd never said a word about them. In the end, Mr. Miller was so furious he slapped her. Jessica stormed out with her bag, ignoring her parents completely. I hurried after her, calling her name. She arched a brow at me. What? You trying to make up with me? I laughed. She was still as arrogant as ever. From my car, I pulled out divorce papers. She went from shock to rage in an instant. Her eyes blazed. Luke, have you lost your damn mind? When I stayed calm, her tone shifted. You're serious? You really plan to marry that little girl? I sighed, unwilling to waste words. Look over the agreement. If you have any issues, talk to me or contact my lawyer directly. I ignored her hysterical insults as I got in the car and drove home. That night, half asleep, I felt the mattress dip beside me. I couldn't tell if I was dreaming or awake. A hot body pressed against my back, arms wrapping around me. Luke, Jessica purred, trying to sound seductive. Just before her hand slipped into my shirt, I shoved her away and swung out of bed. I turned on the light and saw her sprawled on my sheets, dressed or barely dressed in something that could hardly be called lingerie. A few scraps of fabric and strings, nothing more. The material combined wasn't larger than a handkerchief. She gave me what she thought was a sultry look. It's been so long. Don't you miss me? She slid her leg into view. I shut my eyes and sighed deeply. She looked exactly like she had in the video Jason once sent me. My stomach churned, bile rising. Luke, can that little girl really satisfy you? What does she even know? I had no idea how she could be so shameless. Out, I said flatly. When she tried again, I barked, Get out! Her face twisted. I was giving you an easy out and you threw it away. Don't come crying to me later. I really did regretted not locking the bedroom door. Jessica stormed downstairs, smashing plates and silverware. Even the TV and fridge weren't spared. Panting on the sofa, she glared at me. I just said calmly, sign the divorce papers soon. When she refused to leave, I didn't bother to argue. I looked around. Nothing valuable here. All my important documents were safe at my parents' house. I took only Jennifer's photo from the study and walked out of the villa. I lifted my head to the paling sky. Dawn was breaking. I bought breakfast and carried it to Jennifer's. She opened the door groggy and tousled, like a startled puppy. The second she saw me, she threw herself into my arms and held me tight. Why are you here? Before I could answer, she gasped. You're burning up. Turns out I had a fever. No wonder I'd felt like my body was made of lead, dazed all day. The fever broke, but my muscles ached. Jennifer gently massaged me, easing the pain. It was hard on my little princess. I drifted in and out of sleep, barely conscious. Every time I opened my eyes, Jennifer was right there, rubbing my legs, massaging my shoulders, pressing at my temples. I told her to take a break, but she said she wasn't tired, even teased that this should count as overtime and I owed her extra pay. I told her to keep her distance, afraid I might infect her. She smirked proudly, saying she was a fairy, and fairies don't get sick. If I'd had the strength, I would have pulled her into my arms and pinched her cheeks. Instead, I thought back to when Jessica had her appendix surgery just after we got married. I stayed by her side day and night. She complained constantly about the pain, snapping at the doctors and nurses and, of course, at me. Nothing I did could soothe her. By the time she was discharged, I was the one who fell ill. Trouble never comes alone. She nearly tumbled down the stairs one day, too busy with her phone. I rushed to save her and ended up falling myself, fracturing my shin. She said she couldn't take care of people, so left everything to the nanny and caregiver. I understood she was a pampered heiress. How could she know how to nurse someone? But I didn't expect that she wouldn't even visit me for days. My calls went unanswered, my messages unread. A week later, she finally texted back, claiming she was abroad for an important project. She didn't even ask how I was doing, and I was in the hospital because of her. Later, I found out she'd flown off to see Jason. Jason had alcohol poisoning, and she went overseas to care for him. Jason even posted on social media, "You only know who loves you most when you're sick," with a photo of two hands clasped together. I recognized one instantly, Jessica's, with a J engraved on her ring finger. Jason's J. 3 days passed with no word from Jessica. I finally asked my lawyer to contact her. If she wouldn't sign, I'd file a lawsuit. After all, I had piles of evidence of her affairs. She called me, spewing curses, but I couldn't care less. As long as she agreed to divorce, I didn't mind giving her more money, with no other choice. I provoked her, asked if she refused because Jason didn't want to marry her. That must have struck a nerve. This time she agreed and signed. A 1-month cooling off period. Jennifer put a countdown board in my office, saying that after 30 days, I'd be free. The day I got the divorce certificate, I finally felt relief. No more suffocating wait. And right outside the Civil Bureau, I saw Jason waiting for Jessica. He took off his sunglasses when he saw me and waved smugly. That face, that behavior, it reeked of petty villainy. I still couldn't understand what Jessica saw in him. Once free, I took Jennifer traveling. We escaped to an island for half a month before returning home. Friends filled me in on gossip from the circle. Jason's father had divided the estate between Jason's 2 brothers. Those brothers weren't the forgiving type. Jason's mother had once been the mistress who wrecked the marriage. The original wife had been so devastated she ended up hospitalized and even suicidal, nearly divorcing Mr. Smith. So for Jason, the illegitimate son, they had no intention of sharing. His little schemes were crushed again and again by his brothers. With no money to be had, he set his sights on the Miller fortune. During those 2 weeks, Jessica and Jason got married. Jessica flaunted it all over social media, even announcing their wedding in a month. I deleted them both. No interest in their updates. But friends, gossip hungry, shared it anyway, mocking Jason's character and Jessica's hopeless obsession. Jason had her wrapped around his finger. Jessica threw tantrums for days at home, demanding Jason be given a place in her family's company. Mr. and Mrs. Miller finally caved, even putting him in a key department. That's when I received their wedding invitation. Just from the design, you could tell how much effort Jessica poured into it. I didn't want to go, what a waste of time. But my parents urged me, reminding me of the bond between our elders. So I brought Jennifer. The marriage did earn Jason a bit of footing in the Smith family. With business ties between Smith and Miller, even Jason's father and stepmother showed up at the wedding. The ceremony began. The bride and groom declared their undying love. Listening to their epic romance, I nearly laughed. Then the host invited everyone to watch the big screen. It showed their wedding photos. Then older pictures. Suddenly, the screen shifted to videos of Jason fooling around with other women. It was appalling different women, some of them rising internet celebrities. The date showed the most recent was just 2 days ago. Jennifer's eyes went wide, her face flushing scarlet to her neck. I quickly covered her eyes. Not for kids. Chaos broke out with Jessica's sobs and screams. I pulled Jennifer out right away. Later, friends gossiped in our chat group. Turns out after we left, the videos kept playing. They couldn't even turn them off. The highlight was one clip that mentioned me. Jason was talking to a man in a baseball cap, calling Jessica stupid and easy to trick. He handed the man a card, telling him to leak stories and photos about him and Jessica, the same ones that had caused such a scandal before. The man worried Jessica might trace it back, given the Miller family's influence. Jason swore she wasn't smart enough. With a few words, he could steer her into blaming me as the villain. He even sneered that, if not for the Miller fortune, he wouldn't bother with her at all. Eventually, the Miller family cleared everyone out. It was hardly a proud moment. I'd suspected long ago, when reporters first exposed Jessica and Jason, that Jason was behind it all. He wanted to use public opinion to drive a final wedge between us. He knew the rumors would reach our parents, that none of them could ignore it anymore. Even for the sake of appearances, I couldn't keep enduring it. Still, I never stooped to explain myself. The next time I saw Jessica was half a month later, waiting for me in my company's parking lot. Seeing her gave me a strange sense of déjà vu. She stood by my car, refusing to leave. When I wouldn't let her in, she clung to the side mirror, eyes red. "Why did you sell our marital home?" she choked out. I was speechless. That house had been mine before marriage, but the thought of her living there disgusted me, so I sold it. I looked at her coldly. "And what does that have to do with you?" At that, tears rolled down her cheeks. I felt nothing at all. She said she had divorced Jason, cut ties completely. She kept repeating that she knew she was wrong, that she regretted it. She asked if I could give her another chance. She said Jason had deceived her. She thought my marriage with her had only been a business deal. But then she realized she had already fallen in love with me. Jason had told her it was me who leaked those explicit photos, making her misunderstand me. In anger, she agreed to the divorce. Now she said she knew I was the only one who truly cared for her. I laughed. Was she out of her mind? We stood there 10 minutes, and she still refused to leave. When I got out of the car, her eyes lit up, thinking I had softened. Before she could speak, I ran quickly to my other car and drove off. Before she could catch me, in the rearview mirror, I could see her staring after me. I thought that after this, she'd finally give up. Unexpectedly, she went to my parents' house, fighting the maid to do chores, shedding all her arrogance. Finally, she knelt on the ground, refusing to rise, begging me and my parents for forgiveness. My mother, seeing her gaunt figure, softened. My father, however, scowled, calling my mother soft-hearted, convinced a person's nature never changes. I told them plainly that I had a girlfriend. Our relationship was steady, and I planned to marry her. Only then did my mother give up trying to reconcile us. I never expected Jessica to slash her wrists just to see me. Mrs. Miller called, begging me to visit her and talk sense into her. When Mr. Miller found out, he scolded Mrs. Miller, saying Jessica had brought it on herself. He told me not to go, to let her reflect on her own. Jennifer persuaded me to see Jessica anyway, to close the chapter properly. At the hospital, Jessica burst into tears as soon as she saw me. She tried to take my hand, but I pulled away. "Luke, can't you give me one more chance?" "This time, I'll be the one to stay by your side, to take care of you. Just give me a chance to pursue you." "Is that so impossible?" she sobbed. "Jessica, though our marriage began without much love, after the wedding, I gave you my whole heart." She seized on my words, clutching at my shirt. "Then, we can build our love now." I cut her off. I already have someone I love. I love her. I'll give her everything. She deserves it. If not for her, I wouldn't have come at all. She's kind. She wanted me to see you, so you could move on with your life. I remembered Jennifer's little encouraging smile as she sent me off, and I couldn't help but smile myself. Then I looked up into Jessica's eyes, full of grief, regret, and finally, emptiness. She whispered, "She really is wonderful. So much better than me." Her hand slipped from my shirt. Outside, the sun was bright. I looked up and saw Jennifer waiting by the fountain. "Why'd you come? Weren't you supposed to wait at home?" I couldn't hide my delight. She tilted her head proudly. "I ate too much breakfast. Came out here to walk it off. I didn't have the heart to poke at her silly excuse." Only she could travel miles from home and still call it a walk to digest breakfast. 2 months flew by. I proposed to Jennifer. After dinner, we strolled hand in hand. Suddenly, people around us gasped and pointed across the street. Every giant mall screen lit up with hearts and one line of text. "Jennifer, marry me!" She stared wide-eyed, unblinking. "Jennifer, will you marry me?" I dropped to one knee and opened the ring box. Tears streamed down her face as she pulled me up, whispering, "Yes." I looked down, she looked up. Our eyes locked, brimming with warmth. We set our wedding for 6 months later. Meeting each other's parents went smoothly. Her parents adored me, praising me nonstop. My parents doted on Jennifer even more than on me. My mother had been a French teacher, always trying to force me to learn the language. I hated it. French gave me headaches. But Jennifer, who had taken it as an elective, spoke it beautifully. The two of them would chat away in French, sharing secrets and laughing endlessly. That left my father and me clueless. But it turned out her father and mine both loved fishing. Each had been scolded by their wives for being obsessed, and now they had found partners in crime. The mothers became friends too, taking yoga and photography classes together. Jennifer and I were happy to let them bond. At a gathering, someone brought up Jason, saying he was in dire straits. Mr. Smith was ashamed of him, refused to acknowledge him. Jason's mother had been the mistress, his birth hidden until later. She pressured Mr. Smith to bring him home. Jason's stepmother and brothers didn't bother with him because they never saw him as important, treating him like a stray dog at best, just keeping him close to keep an eye on him. After the wedding scandal, Jason had disgraced the Smiths and angered the Millers. The Millers wanted him gone, preferably fed to sharks. Friends still speculated about who exposed those wedding videos. Everyone agreed it was satisfying. I knew the truth. It was his two half-brothers. They had once tried to rope me in, but I refused. Even for Mr. Miller's sake, I wouldn't let the family be humiliated like that. I heard Jason now hung around rich older women, scraping by. Word was he'd latched onto a married one. The woman had money, but her husband was no pushover. When he found out, he had Jason's manhood destroyed. The whole circle laughed at him. Before the wedding, I had gone with Jennifer to try on dresses. She pouted, saying it was exhausting trying one after another. She asked me which looked best, which was most elegant, which was most unique. I just smiled and answered each time. She lifted her skirts, muttering she needed to pick carefully. It was, after all, the most important dress of her life. What I wanted to say was, Jennifer, my love, no matter which gown you wear, as long as the bride is you, it will be perfect.